There we go. All right. This is the Earl of Fife talk, episode 2. I'm kind of committed to doing these every once in a while, and I just wanted to. There is some discussion in a couple of the discords today, and primarily about Kickstarter. And I thought it would be a good idea, since I have a Kickstarter coming up in about 2 weeks, to talk about kind of my process with Kickstarter. Um, this is not necessarily um, how to be successful in a Kickstarter, but this is kind of my process to make sure I know everything that I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it, that sort of thing. And marketing Kickstarter is kind of a different conversation completely. So yeah, I'm not going to get into like how to make a successful Kickstarter necessarily through funds, because I haven't had a wildly successful Kickstarter yet, where I could say, "Yay, I made a lot of money off this," and uh, you know that sort of thing. So let me, that sort of thing. So one second, I'm just let me
Getting some
you know
stuff
that sort
ready.
of thing. So one second, I'm just um So yeah, I think one thing. So what I do, so I've had two successful Kickstarters, um, and talking about kind of what I do. First thing, you need to have your concept of what you want to make, right? It might seem that's obvious, but um, what that comes with is, your own interests and your research on similar products, and looking at other Kickstarters, and just seeing, what your goal is too. Your goal might not be to make as much money as possible, and the Kickstarter could be something completely else. Maybe you value more backers more. So there's different ways to make kind of to figure out what you want to do and how you want to achieve those goals. If you're looking at as getting as many backers as possible, maybe you're doing something very, tiers of rewards that are relatively cheap, to end up getting all those backers in. There's strategies for, audience retention and things like that you can do for that. You have 1,000 backers, you're going to be able to target those backers again with your products. So you might feel like having more backers is a benefit. So that is possible. Um, that's what you would do, instead of something like having what you would call a normal Kickstarter, where your tiers are $20 plus, and you're really looking for money to create the thing, or make a profit or whatever. Um, so yeah, so that's kind of like your first thing you need to do. Um, then you need to kind of conceptualize what that's going to look like. What is your project going to look like? What are you going to produce? Now you don't have to know everything right at the beginning, but you're gonna, okay, I'm going to produce a book that's about 200 pages in length or something like that. I know that it's going to be not a humongous book, but it's not going to be a short book either. It's not going to be a 50-page book. Those things are, obviously, you need to know those things in order to know how to price them, um, what you're going to, what the cost is going to be to create it. Then you kind of have to determine your budgetary stuff, like kind of guess what your average pledge will be. It's hard to say, and it's hard to say always what that's going to be, but you can kind of guess based on your pledge levels, and how many backers you have is always like very difficult to kind of estimate. You might estimate something similar to someone else with a similar project, but you're never going to know for sure until you run that Kickstarter and see how successful it is. You need to determine, out of your cost, there's quite a few, depending on how much you want to spend, right? um, just fees based on not actually producing your product. You have your crowdfunding platform fee, which is usually 5 to 10% total. That includes the actually what's going to Kickstarter or BackerKit and what's going to the credit card company for them to process that. So there's that. Usually falls into like the 8% range, something like that. Then are you going to do something like backer kit pledge manager? That's usually 2% of your total, um, depending. If it's below some certain threshold, they just charge you a flat fee. Um, if you do crowdfunding on backer kit, that is free. So that's a good thing. There's also what? So you're going to have fees for it depend how much marketing are you going to do, or if are you going to do any. So you can run Facebook ads, you can run other types of advertisement with influencers, YouTube channels, that sort of thing. You got to figure out, you know, what you think you're going to get back on that. There's something called a ROAS, it's return on ad spend, and it's a calculation that incorporates several of your production costs versus how much you're going to get, and you can find out what your general break even point is per dollar spent. It's usually, or dollar received, I should say. It's usually something, it's a two plus usually. So that means if I spend $1 on an ad, I need to make at least $2 back. So there's usually um, some number you need to come up with if you're doing marketing like that, advertising. Then and so there's other um, fees as well. You might incur. You're going to have shipping. You're going to probably have to pay taxes. And when I say taxes, I'm talking about like sales taxes to wherever you're shipping your stuff. So there's that. That can be a interesting and more complicated process in places such as the EU and Europe. So that's just here nor there. That's another thing you have to figure out. You have to figure out logistics of how you're going to get your books to wherever you're going to get them. Are you going to have fulfillment centers? That sort of thing. You have to realize that they are going to take some money, so you have to know how to price your shipping accordingly. Um, Production of the thing. I'm just assuming books at this point, right? But it could be other things. What your printing costs. You got to know, you know, how much it's going to be to print X amount of units, and then you got to figure out how much it's going to be to ship those units to wherever you want them to ship. Usually it's not one place either. Usually it's at least two. If you're going to ship um, some to the U.S. and some to Europe, then that increases your cost per unit shipped. So you got to figure out what that is. Um, there's just all kinds of things, and then of course fees for things such as paying writers and artists and editors and whatever you're going to need in your project. There's quite a few. So as you can see, there's just a ton of costs involved in making a game like this. Um, but you have to kind of figure that out and figure out um, what you're trying to do and how much are you actually trying to make on the project. Are you trying, whatever? Um, uh, so when I come to a project, I generally know what I think it's going to come in at, right? So basically, I come into a worst case scenario, besides not funding. Um, so, um, if it doesn't fund, it just doesn't get made probably, or it gets made very, very cheaply. Not cheaply, but it doesn't get made with all the bells and whistles at the very least, Um, and you just hope to be even at that point, It's like, well, okay, maybe in retail it'll make up, you know. But you don't. It depends how far along you are in the development process too. Maybe you just don't do it. But when I do it, when I'm coming into a Kickstarter, usually I want at least the manuscript. I'm talking about books again to be at least 25% finished. Um, at least the first draft of it, at least 25% finished. Um, some people might say that's not enough, but it just kind of depends. It would be great if it was 50%. It just depends where you are in the development cycle of the book. Sometimes you want to see if it is a valid thing to actually do, and so instead of putting in, 100% of the work on the thing and then crowdfunding and not making any money, or maybe you barely fund or something, and maybe in that situation, if you didn't fund or something, you wouldn't make the thing. That's possible. Um, so you don't want to. I'd say you don't want to get too ahead of yourself. At least I don't. If I had a very very good sense that it was going to fund, and I didn't have any issues with that. If I knew it was going to be um, a six-figure project, I would have it a lot more finished. And that's the Heroes and Hardships core book was, I was making it no matter what, really. So, but it was, I used the Kickstarter to pay myself back more than I did, um, gain anything. To gain the stuff to create it. But that's not usually the case. Um, so you want it to be, have some actual stuff finished for it. You don't want to just say, well, I have if this Kickstarter on this vague idea I have works, then I'll produce all the thing. You want to have a better understanding. And it helps you too. You have a better understanding of what it is, what you're trying to explain to them, that sort of thing. At a Kickstarter, you're probably going to need art assets off the bat, so you're going to have to invest some money there. So you want to make your Kickstarter page as appealing as possible. Most people use lots of graphics. If you see a ton of text without graphics, it seems like it's not really real, but it seems like more of a kind of a low what's the word I'm looking for? It can make people think that the project is not as as interesting or professional, I guess is the word, as something with a lot of fancy graphics and stuff. Ours is kind of in between there. I try to put in some nice graphics and stuff, but it is what it is. Without hiring someone who's a graphic designer and make a huge Kickstarter page and make it really fancy, because that's a cost. Um, so yeah, so you're gonna need that. Obviously, I figure out what my reward tiers are, and that is actually one that I kind of struggle on. I know that obviously I'm always going to have the PDF version and the physical version, but there could be other things too. In Heroes and Hardships, I always offer, some of the previous books, like the core rule book, will always be offered because that's one of my goals is to spread the core rule book with future releases. Like my 5e uh, supplement that I'm doing next, it's not going to have that. So, I know that it's going to suffer from the fact that it doesn't have those high dollar amount tiers. But I did add something extra, like this is going to have Foundry support. So, and you have to understand, like you have to look at your Kickstarter and say, how much work is this really? How much is it going to cost me in my time to develop it? And if it's, that can be a cost to you as well, right? Putting a whole bunch of stretch goals, which is a bunch of writing and stuff, and a bunch of more adventures or supplements or whatever it is difficult because that just puts a burden on you to finish. And that is, we all know that stretch goals is one of the reasons that projects suffer because they're just too much work. It might seem like, oh, I'm going to give you this free thing, even if you don't print it. There's no dollar cost to it or very little. The cost in man hours, just overtakes that, and so it can be a real problem. We've seen Kickstarters and whole companies go down because of this sort of thing. Um, yeah. So you have to know how to manage your stretch goals if you want any, and what pledge tiers you're going to have, and kind of be able to guess. When it comes to setting your funding goal, this is a well-known fact in the industry that whatever people put is not what they need, not even close. This is for a couple reasons. Is partly because of the Kickstarter algorithm. It likes to see people fund quickly. Um, so when people fund quickly, it's more apt to show your project to other people, and so it kind of helps it along. Okay, that's one of the main things why people will set a goal of $10,000, and it's some free league or modifius projects, which is going to make well into six figures. So and 10K is not going to cover the writing for that book, let alone everything else that's going to be required. So I play that game too, because you have to if you want to be successful, really. So I'll set my funding goal at something I think it'll hit in the first day at least. And so that way it just like keeps spinning. The algorithm pick it up, say, oh, this is already funded in 3 hours, blah blah blah. Let's keep pumping it out to other people. Yeah. So that's a little game you have to play with Kickstarter. So you're at that point, and then you want to actually figure out how long you want to run the campaign. This is also something that is kind of more prominent. A lot of times you just saw the 30-day window for a Kickstarter, and that's just what you did. Um, par- Partially because Kickstarter's always said, you know, um, projects that run under 30 days or 30 days and under are more successful, which is true. But people just take that and they say, well, 30, I got to have at least 30 days then so I can get as much of that money as I can. Well, it depends on what your crowdfunding history is, how successful it's going to be in general. Do you expect that every day you're going to make at least hundreds, if not thousands of dollars? Then yeah, run it for 30 days. If you think in the middle of the campaign you're going to have rough days where you might not make anything or you might lose money, then I would not suggest, at least personally, running it for 30 days. I run it for something more along the lines of 3 weeks. I look very specifically on what days they end, so I can try to end them, at least I did on my last, I can try to end at the end of the day Eastern time, at a certain time. And I think I ran my last one for 21 days, and I expect that I will continue doing that until otherwise, until I'm proved that I'm losing money by doing that. This kind of is a self-care thing for one. Those middle days where you're not making any money or losing money, it really sucks. So you just kind of have to understand that and be prepared for it and kind of make it as less long, make it as short of a period of time as possible, right? So yeah. Um, so what else? Pre-launch, you're gonna have different strategies to build your followers for your pre-launch page, which I always recommend getting as many as you possibly can and really focusing on that. And so you're going to want to do that. I do that. I spend a lot of time in my, month or two before I run a Kickstarter doing this. It's probably actually the most time consuming part of this. And I do that primarily with cross promotions. I've had people ask me, why do you show so many projects of other Kickstarters in your newsletter? Well, that's why. Because I'm trying to be a good cross promotioner partner, give them exposure to my email list, and I get exposure to however they're, you know, um, showing off my project too. It's just something you have to do unless you want to try to pay for them all with, Facebook ads, like direct Facebook ads into your project and have them click on it. It's very difficult to track. Um, it's not. It's very hard to know if you're getting your money's worth for those. So I don't do them right now. I do lead generation, which means come and join my newsletter, and I'll be able to talk to you more later. Right? I do that. I do that. So because you find a good customer, interested customer in those emails, you can just keep marketing to them. And marketing is a bad word in this, in this field, and probably other fields in general, but to some people. But it's really important. If you don't market to people, then you're not going to sell anything. And so, um, it's people don't just like find you. Usually, that's what Kickstarter is. Kickstarter is, to me, primarily a marketing platform, right? It markets to people that you know, um, markets to people that might see your project somehow. That algorithm we talked about earlier. So yeah, you're trying to get it in front of as many people as you can, and hopefully as many times as you can. There's some comment where people say that it takes like 7 times of seeing something where somebody's more the most likely to buy it. So you gotta really show it to people then. Yeah. And that I just it really frustrates me to see like places like Reddit where people are like vehemently against any sort of marketing whatsoever. And spamming is one thing, but like telling people about your product where they might not know about it otherwise. I welcome that as somebody interested in playing role playing games. I want to see what's new. I want to know what's new. Now I make my decision if I like it or have any interest in it, and I don't want to be spammed with it every 5 seconds. But I still want to see those things. It's no problem to me. I find more interest in that than like talking about something I hate with D&D or something, right? Which is really the discourse or something I dislike about something, right? Which is most of the discourse on social media anyway. I'd really like to learn about things instead of, giving my 2 cents about something that nobody gives a crap about, right? Nobody cares if I like something or I don't like it. Yeah. Anyway, you're gonna have to market your game in certain ways, and that's one of the ways I do it. Um, so that's all pre-launch. You have something of a product, either you know more likely it's some percentage finished, hopefully. That will help you actually build your product page in a more honest, better way for people to understand what you're giving them. I don't think you can successfully not have anything finished and be, I'm going to make this adventure about so and so, and then you get in there and you start writing or whoever, and it just doesn't work out for you, and then you got to do it anyway because that's what your Kickstarter said you want to do. So I have something of a manuscript already partially completed before I go into this. When you launch, this is the tougher time, right? You just have to kind of you can do all your marketing stuff in campaign 2, right? This is ads, working with BackerKit for their ads or Jellup or whoever you're going to use. Try to hit your ROAS if you can, which is, it's unknowing, right? They tell you, oh, we're getting as many click-through rates as something that, your project would, usually get, but they're not converting. So you just lost $800 in ads, making less than, $800. You spent 800 and you made 600. Congratulations, So there's those marketing concerns. There's you're gonna do is the media tour, maybe if you can stand it, to or get people to even want to talk to you, people that want to interview you about your game, interview you about whatever, and get your face out there, get your the link to your Kickstarter page out there, and maybe it's not worth it. I don't know. It just depends on your own personality and if you can stand doing it and if you like doing it and whatever, right? So there's multiple, you're going to have to go through that. You have to decide, am I just going to look for very specific choices or am I going to just do everything I can, even though I know going on some show that has a total of 500 subscribers is not going to get me anything more than likely, right? So, that's just kind of, your time usage. Are you going to pay uh, influencers to market your game? So that's always a question. Do you pay these guys and gals, not a cheap amount to put them up on your YouTube video? Put your thing up on a YouTube video and talk about it. What kind of ROAS are you going to see from that? You need less, right? Because it's a little different. They're not getting some percentage of it. So some people get a percentage of what you're, you know, if we're talking about, backer kit, then they get a percentage of your earnings on what pledged through them. So it makes the ROAS a little bit more complicated. Whereas you got influencers, usually it's just, pay me, X amount of dollars for this video of this type, and that's it. You pay them no matter what. So, um, yeah, there's a lot of interesting things that go along with getting your Kickstarter page and kind of knowing what you're going to do, and in a way that you're going to be able to fulfill it in a timely manner. It's kind of rambling, but you also have, when you're determining what you're going to do, you kind of understand, based on printing, worst case scenario, I do this, it's going to take X amount of time. Best case scenario, I'm going to do this, and it's going to take X amount of time and money, right? So you kind of have to be flexible. Like if my last one, if I was planning on doing like a offset print run in Lithuania again, I don't wouldn't do it, wouldn't be able to do it. And if I had a ton of backers, I probably would do it because it behooves me to do it because it's cheaper per unit. But if you don't, then you're going to have this problem where it might be cheaper per unit, but then you have to freight it. Freight costs are bad. It's going to cost money. It's going to expend time to do it. Um, you're going to have a superior product probably, and per unit prices are probably cheaper. Um, but so what I did is I split it. Some of it I had a pretty good system. I had some printed in the U.S. at Mixam. I had some printed in the UK from Amazon, and just went at it that way. So you have to be flexible and kind of know your options, right? And you know, as a consumer, it makes me feel more comfortable when I see a Kickstarter creator with not only successful crowdfunding campaigns, because everybody has to do it the first time, right? There's nobody who's not done it one time, the first time, right? So um, that's going to happen. But like, how much do they use Kickstarter? Do they have any? Have they backed anything ever? Do they even understand how? Like, it makes me kind of leery when I see a company uh, creating a Kickstarter campaign and they have nothing backed, right? Maybe it's a different account and it doesn't show up, but I would not suggest that. And I know some publishers who game this um, by by pledging $1 to various projects to make it look like they have done a lot of backing, but they really haven't. Maybe that's okay in this case because they're able to, you know, understand kind of what's happening. But I think you really need that kind of whole process. Unless you've waited 3 years for a game and kind of trying to understand like what the why that happened or a game that didn't fund. I've never backed a game that not didn't fund. Sorry, I've never backed a game that I did not get the product eventually. Now I've had a couple where it's been several years late, but I've never had one that just hasn't fulfilled. So I've been lucky that way, and I've backed like 50 plus. So um, it's you have to come in understanding all the gotchas as best you can. Now you can't settle. What if I hired somebody to write big swaths of the book and they just disappeared? And I have some sort of date in the contract that says I need this by then. It's hard to like get rid of the contract, so you have to wait for them. And now I have provisions in my contracts that let me uh, cancel the contract for almost any reason if they don't produce things. But so yeah, I mean it's just there's a lot of things that can trip you up, and I suggest people watching mid to small size creators and how they do things that are successful. Looking at like someone like Free League, Modifius, great companies, love them, but it's not gonna teach you much, right? You need to kind of understand um, how Kickstarter works, and I was very fortunate to partner, and I still partner with Nord Games, and Chris at Nord Games has been just a great help to me, a bit of a mentor in this stuff. So understanding, just how Kickstarter works and all the gotchas and all that kind of stuff. There's more you could talk about how to create a successful Kickstarter and how to market it and all that stuff. And that's kind of like not something I can tell you for sure because it just depends on so many different factors for you, for your game, for your audience, that sort of thing. It can be all very different. But just how to get that book done, get your stuff and not get yourself in a pickle. And so you have to be flexible, is really what it boils down to. You have to be flexible. You have to understand your risks and where they are and how to confront them. And just, it's everywhere along the way, right? You have to kind of have a guess of, what's going to happen in each, you know, portion of the Kickstarter and how to overcome some problem in each of them. You know, you can't let your budget get out of control. You have to be smart too. You have to just be cautious and understand your motive for doing this. Is it to make a bunch of money? I mean, bunch is relative, but is it to make money and churn out as many as you can? Um, Whatever. Maybe you're using stock art or heaven forbid AI art or something, and you're releasing a bunch of adventures that you can knock out, write them in a couple days, and lay them out in a few more, and whatever. And your product runs or project runs, and you make $3,000. Well, you've spent maybe $100, or I don't know what it is. You've cleared $2,000 plus probably. You know, if you're like me, where I'm running bigger products, where I'm looking for thousands of dollars to make it, and I'm looking, thousands of dollars, at least five figures to probably break even. Um, you're going to do things a little differently too. And there's probably more steps. A lot of people, these smaller projects, they're going to do, drive through RPG, POD if they're doing print at all. So, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just your decision. Um, but I think there are certain levels of campaigns which I would call shovelware. They really kind of are diluting Kickstarter as a whole. They're just pumping out random stuff all over the place. And you have to, you have to wade through that. You have to make yourself stand out from all these products that people are just pumping out constantly. So, and that's kind of just like your job to determine what you're going to do and how it's, what the scope of your project is. So what are you looking for? So I hope this is very rambly, and it's mostly for the customers of Earl of Fife Games to see kind of how I do things. And I know I didn't do a very good job probably laying out all the things, but um, basically I take great care in trying to be flexible and understanding what my risks are, understanding how much money something will cost, being okay. Well, it just depends what your worst case scenario is, as I said. And the worst case scenario for me is typically is I'm out of pocket some money to produce the thing the way I want to produce it. The worst case scenario is I fund, but I don't really fund, right? And then I have a choice to make. Do I cancel the campaign before it ends, or do I just swallow that money? So that's not happened to me yet, thankfully. But I haven't made much on either of my Kickstarter campaigns due to the costs and trying to provide the best product I could. That's not my overall goal with Heroes and Hardships at this point, is to make a ton of money off of it. My goal is to build the brand, build the game, and that stuff hopefully will come as popularity rises. You have to just kind of understand what your goal is too. I think that's the you know best way to say it. And I think most people's goal is just make money, but that changes your decisions, right? So yeah, and where are you going to make your money? Are you looking to make all your money on Kickstarter or in retail or whatever? What's your overall goal? And it's more complicated than just I make money, right? So I think that's really all I have to talk about. And so I like talking about this stuff. If interested, I don't think nope. Okay. So if interested, just you can hop on the Discord for Earl of Fife Games. I'm there quite a bit. Ready to talk to anybody about Heroes and Hardships or games in general. Um, and I want to thank some other folks like there's the Mr. Mean YouTube channel. I hang out on their Discord, and there's a lot of discourse between publishers and customers, and not specifically their customers necessarily, but just about the business in general, and kind of getting everybody's feedback and perspective on things I think can help. It can help us as publishers getting the customers' feedback on things about why they don't like certain things or why they're remiss to do certain things when we're trying to, it's a weird way to say it, but we're trying to, guess their behavior. What triggers them to buy the thing, right? And, we want to give the best, to these people, the customers, we want to give them the best product, but we want to trigger them to buy it. You know, I mean, that's with everything. It's capitalism, right? What triggers someone to buy something, right? So, and so we have to have a better understanding of what they don't like and what they do like, right? And why that is, right? And can we change their mind about certain things based on, you know, uh, what we do as creators and people. I think some creators need to realize this is a business. It's not just you know, it's not just, oh, I'm gonna do this and it'll be fun and it's gonna be lollipops and rainbows and gonna get some of that D&D money and everything's gonna be great. It's a real business with real expectations, costs to your customers, to yourself, to your partners, everybody. So I think that is one thing that some creators are, giving others a bad name because they do not take this seriously, or not as seriously as they should. Now stuff happens, obviously, that can't be controlled. You're one person. Assumingly you're a small business, you're not a corporation where in a corporation you get sick or you have something comes up, they can support you and have people do things for you, where in this is not necessarily the case. I always like Kevin Crawford's risks thing. Basically, if I die, then no one will know how to fulfill this project. Something like that. It's kind of funny. But and stuff happens. You're realizing you're dealing with a small team of people, and stuff happens. And I think there should be some grace there, understanding that this is kind of pre-order is not a great term, because pre-order assumes that it's already made or it's being made regardless, but it is somewhat of a pre-order thing. So, you don't want to wait years. You don't want to try to be late, but stuff happens. I think if you have good communication as a creator, and something like that happens, I think most people are willing to, be okay with it. But if you go like and do interviews and saying, oh, I'm a stay-at-home dad, and I just can't work that hard. I saw that, uh, and their Kickstarter was very late, and yeah, people were not happy. Um, so, I mean, you don't want to do that either, right? You understand this is a business, and businesses have to run, and you have to do your job as a business owner, as a employee of a business, whatever. So that's, if you're a creator and you're watching this, that's my opinion. So, um, you need to work hard too, right? This isn't just, I got this idea of a goblin adventure and I'm just gonna write it, and oh my gosh, I'm just gonna make so much money and not do anything. It's not the way anything is that's worth doing, and it's not where how anything is that'll be successful, right? So I think that's really it. Just kind of me, rambling about my philosophy on Kickstarters, both as a consumer and a creator. So I hope that was interesting. So thanks, and go ahead and stop by our Discord. We have a Dungeon Deep in Caverns Ultra 5th Edition coming May 14th. So yeah, visit the link below, and you can get notified when we go live. Thanks.